This day has brought terrible news. Mission Control in Houston lost contact with our space shuttle Columbia.
It was the early morning of 1st of February 2003 and the atmosphere in the NASA control room at Kennedy Space Center was upbeat, although with a bit of jitters and lot of anxiety. NASA space shuttle Columbia was in the final leg of its journey back to Earth and was just minutes away from re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. This was the most crucial moment for Columbia and for all 7 astronauts who were on board. The entire world was waiting with bated breath for their safe landing. But then the tragedy struck in the final moments and communication from the space shuttle was cut off. Moments later, a huge ball of fire was seen in the sky and then everyone at Kennedy Space Center went absolutely silent. The STS Columbia was lost and there were no survivors, and for the space shuttle program, it marked the beginning of the end. Today is the 20th anniversary of the disaster that changed the way we look at space journeys. This event also raised the already rigorous benchmark for sending humans into space. In this video, we recap what was the Columbia's mission and what led to its unfortunate failure. But before that, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to In Depth. This was the second space disaster after the Challenger space shuttle disaster of 1986. NASA had witnessed a catastrophic failure during its launch in 1986. In that incident too, all 7 onboards had died. 17 years down the line of that fateful event, the history repeated itself on 1st of February 2003. Columbia was a white, plane-shaped spacecraft that became symbolic of NASA's space program and more generally, space exploration in the late 1970s and 80s. From 1981 to 2003, Columbia flew 28 times, including that fateful final mission. Columbia STS-107 was on a routine mission to conduct scientific experiments in space. It was launched from Kennedy Space Center, Florida, USA on January of 16, 2003. When it took off on its 28th flight on January for a 16-day mission to carry out experiments, it had been in operation for over 20 years. Flight STS-107 was launched under extremely tight security in the wake of 9/11 attacks and due to the presence on board of Israel's first astronaut, Ilan Ramon. But right from the start, things had gone wrong. A piece of foam used to insulate the shuttle's super cold fuel had broken off from a booster rocket during the launch of the space shuttle, and that bit of foam had hit the wing of the orbiter. By the second day of the mission, NASA had discovered what had happened, but a decision was made to continue the mission without fixing the damage or evacuating the astronauts. The crew was notified about the debris strike via an email from Mission Control, but was assured that the same phenomenon had been seen on several other flights and that there was absolutely no concern about it affecting their re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. But when the Columbia shuttle began its descent back to Earth after roughly 2 weeks in space, the decision to do nothing proved to be wrong and fatal. The Columbia mission was a purely experimental one. The astronauts had spent 24 hours per day doing science experiments in 2 shifts. They had performed around 80 experiments in life sciences, material sciences, fluid physics and other matters before beginning their return to Earth's surface. On 1st of February, the shuttle made its usual landing approach to the Kennedy Space Center. Just before 9 a.m. EST, however, abnormal readings showed up at Mission Control. Temperature readings from sensors located on the left wing were lost. Then, tire pressure readings from the left side of the shuttle also vanished. It was later found that a hole on the left wing had allowed atmospheric gases to bleed into the shuttle as it went through its fiery re-entry, leading to the loss of the sensor and eventually Columbia itself and all the astronauts inside. The Capcom or spacecraft communicator then called up Columbia to discuss the tire pressure readings. At 8:59, the flight commander, Rick Husband, called back from Columbia, but the communication was cut off in mid-sentence. At that point, Columbia was near Dallas, traveling 18 times the speed of sound and was still 61,170 meters above the ground. Mission Control made several attempts to get in touch with the astronauts with no success. That was the last communication of NASA with Columbia. 12 minutes later, when Columbia should have been making its final approach to the runway, a mission controller received a phone call. The caller said that a television network was showing a video of the shuttle breaking up in the sky. Shortly afterward, NASA declared a space shuttle contingency and sent search and rescue teams to the suspected debris site in Texas and later in Louisiana. Later that day, NASA declared that astronauts and the space shuttle was lost. And with this, the early morning of 1st of February 2003 turned into a day of gloom for the world and India. For India, this mission was supposed to be a momentous one. Kalpana Chawla, first US citizen of Indian descent, was also on the ill-fated shuttle. She was the first woman of Indian origin to go into space. She was posthumously awarded the Congressional Space Medal of Honor, the NASA Space Flight Medal and the NASA Distinguished Service Medal. The story and investigation into the Columbia Space Shuttle accident illustrates how dangerous and difficult spaceflight was and is to this day. Space flight is no less difficult today than it was 20 years ago or in the 1960s. This was all about the ill-fated journey of Columbia that occurred on 1st of February 2003. We hope you would like this new video. Thank you for watching.